Cahill's prose and poems have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies. His poems have twice won the Central Coast Writers Award. Patrick is a co-founder and editor of Ambush Review, a San Francisco-based literary arts journal. He was also a contributing editor for the Sonoma County anthology, Digging Our Poetic Roots, which I think was edited or kind of sponsored by Catherine Hastings when she was poet laureate. He received his PhD in history of consciousness from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and wrote a study of Whitman and visual experience in 19th century America. Portions of this work have appeared in the Daguerrean Annual and Left Curve. Patrick lives in San Francisco, where he volunteers with San Francisco Recreation and Parks in habitat restoration. Please welcome Patrick Cahill.
Thank you, Sandy, for the introduction, and thank you for inviting Elliot and me to read. And thank all of you for coming out this evening. I'm going to read most of my poems from the book that came out from 16 Rivers last year. And then I'm going to finish with a couple of pieces from a new manuscript. I'm going to start out with a new piece, the first piece in the book called A Fantasy Trip in a Kayak Up a River, and it's called Hurricane Coast. Our kayak entered Dutchman's Creek, followed the arrow red and black gradations on the compass face, spinning and still. The white bird's feet were yellow in the tree. Our diligent work against the current's resistance, pure opium. Remember now the woman with the jeweled tooth, her right of dubious authenticity. Water poured from blade to wrist, from there to waist, and swamped our shell. When we were here, or were we there? Alcohol illuminated our neural streams as periwinkles measured the depth. A white bird's legs trailed black in the sky, but we weren't as fortunate. That antebellum riverport, its brackish mouth, overexposed in bioluminescent light. The panorama of our expedition, unscrolling across the simmering wash, altered our story's destination. We never were a beginning here. Mist drifted our vision, and in the book of insect migrations, we mapped our way. This next piece is a poem about memory. I've read this a couple of times before, but it's kind of a central theme to the book, so I want to read it again tonight. It's called Remember. I remember her, or rather, I remember a memory of her. A street in Rabat, a young woman, Moroccan, a narrow street down the river, ocean or river, down to the water. A boy, perhaps. Was it a boy, androgynous, bringing coconuts down to a dock, splitting their shells? Rabat or somewhere south on the coast, another coast, a coast perhaps on the south of Spain. A Spanish girl down a narrow street in Cadiz. Cadiz, the Gulf of Cadiz. Was she beautiful? The girl, or the Gulf. The girl, was she beautiful? I don't remember. Her face? How could I possibly remember her face? His or hers, the androgynous boy. You remember the memory of a girl in Cadiz. Cadiz or Rabat. A girl or a boy. A narrow street, an impression of water. coconut spilling watery milk, a coast of Arabic aspect, Arabic facades adjoining it, fractured cells, salt water or funk, a river's funk. It rationed the air. A memory of memories watery dissolves. This much I remember. Abundance. Under a current of black and yellow bees, blue clusters of ceanothus vibrate. Let the current etch its confusions. Let the breath measure its aroma. Let the soil darken its profusion. This piece is called Badlands, and there are several pieces of music mentioned in the poem by Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, and Bill Evans. And there's, toward the end of the poem, there's the French name for the Badlands from the old Louisiana Purchase days, and the Lakota name. Badlands. Your liquid selves displacing the arid there. 20 traces in 20 towns. Your lover gone, you fill the space with his photograph. The picture arouses an intimacy the lover had not. You touch yourself and feel the heat entering your fingertips. The blue of the Badlands, and just as intense. Your touch, so what? The music scattered. Well, you needn't. Peace, peace. Night lightning, and under its violet circuitry, your Badlands graph the night. You wet a bone to make a knife. You conjure sleep to dream a night. His slow, metallic gestures glint in the light. Les mauvaises terres à traverser. Mako Sika, a convalescence from butte to butte. Cheat medicine, striations of its buried life. The Badlands you've just begun to cross. This piece is called Days Like This. The jacaranda's lavender petals fell through the night and fell through the day. Hadn't they removed the tools and the bodies yet? She let him talk, she imagined, for 30, 40 minutes to her sleeping phone. She steps out into the lavender drifts. The air muted, humid, slows the hours of her acceleration. The black phoebe spreads its wings and fans its tail in a dusty patch of sunlight. Its brown feathered edges remind her of, among a red profusion of climbing bracts, clusters of eyes, although the reverse is also true. She begins to paint the portrait of a dog. This has happened before. Paints instead a spider skittering into abstraction beyond the frame. There where the story and desire begin. This piece is a fantasy about the poet Arthur Rimbaud. And the Orpheus that is mentioned here is from John Cocteau's Orphic trilogy, which some of you may have seen. There are two French phrases. The first means as simple as a musical phrase, and the second one, nest of flames. These are both from Rimbaud's own work. The poet ponders his lot. Arthur Rimbaud in my cafe, talking to himself, his one and only imaginary friend. Obnoxious, but cute. A mouse under the table picking up the poet's crumbs. The mouse speaks English, but squeaks in French. A vector for diseases, that hairless tail. A motor mouth to boot, but cute. Orpheus had his radio, so why must I, the poet mutters, have to take dictation from a rodent? C'est aussi simple qu'une phrase musicale. He eyes the mouse. That's easy enough for you to say. If only he could snag a fly on the tip of his tongue, circle the moon, assume the aura circling the moon, describe again Anita Flom. That didn't arrive by radio. The blue in the eyes, a see-through blue. So she walks in, a glimpse of a breast, suggesting a chorus. Then he walks in, his pantalon just about to slip his hips. Him or her, the poet thinks. Maybe both. I've been around. I'm flexible. Later for the verse. In your dreams, the mouse says. In your dreams, and disappears. I have several dystopian poems in the collection, but this particular one just refers back to World War II, and it's called Floating Chrysanthemums. As they fell above the sea, those alien clusters of suicide planes, those floating chrysanthemums, our eyelids, adrenaline of desire. Fulgura frango, an inscription against the storm. I break up the lightning. Don't we all, she said, as the bell tower, the turbulence under her skin, thunder, the adrenaline. He suffered from a delusion of parasites, delusory parasitosis, hid in the static of his obsessions, suffered the programmed cell death his injuries remembered, combat now brought on. If someone is worth shooting once, they're worth shooting twice, they said. Harmonic tremors crossed the ocean floor, replicated the tremors of his desire, a dull pulsation at the base of the skull. As they fell to the sea, those miniature exploding suns, chrysanthemums, a profusion on the membrane of our desire. The last piece I'm going to read from the book is a poem about loss. And I refer to two, they're quotes from two poets, one from Auden and one from Shelley. It's called Gone. You, a composition of desire, even in the fog. Star jasmine burdens the air, its fragrance a devious substitute. Yes, even in the fog. Take us to your Russia, Natalia, your frozen sun blurring its migrations of snow, those blue and senseless distances, Natalia. Take us from these disappearing surfaces. We've ground the lenses for clarity, for poetry makes nothing happen. Yet Spinoza inhaled the powdered glass of his trade and died of it. Have you ever pined for the perfect roll, rolled for the perfect dream, dreamed the perfect mountain, where the pine its garland weaves, woven the perfect sacrificial mountain tree? The moving air moved through your reflection beyond the window above the walk. The living too moved through you. I looked right through them to traffic beyond. Then one day you began to disappear, lingering there behind me, your reflection gone. And if I turn around one day, you won't be there. I'm going to finish with a couple of poems from my new manuscript. And I'm going to read the epigraph that comes at the beginning of the first chapter. It's a quote from Davis Sobel's book, Longitude. And since time sets its own tempo, like a heartbeat or an ebb tide, timepieces don't really keep time. They just keep up with it if they're able. This first of two pieces is a kind of stream of consciousness prose poem. It's called One Way or Another. The hawthorn stripped, one red berry and one red leaf. The hawk's cry exhausted in your throat. An accident of flight down by the river. The jay mimicking a table saw. You slip your hand into a pocket of evidence. Touch the ticket. A landscape of footprints and dark reliefs. Your voice a branch repeating its leaved echoes. Its wings, dark edge, binding the hollow air. The body you've sketched beneath your lids. You look for the sky, vanished once again for a moment, then pirouette, drop the freight ticket in the trash. This last piece is called Isfahan, and it refers to, of course, the city in Iran, but I'm thinking more back to the city in the 17th century when it was the capital of Persia. Isfahan. A touch of perfume inside her wrist carries the scent of longing and loss. A distant then. How do I take that mountain where I go? Where you go, it goes. A lemon tree at the top of the stairs. Billy Strayhorn's Isfahan composing the street. Fragrance in the air, evening on the Pittosporum, dreaming in slow motion. Isfahan, his half of the world. Slid the flat blade of the knife across her tongue, savored the lemon juice it left. Ice melted in the palm of her words. That spider in the clock last seen, weaving its time. The invisible city of Isfahan. Thank you all very much.